Welcome. My name is Frances Goodall, and I'm a wellbeing coach, an EFT practitioner and body worker. And I've been in the field of complementary therapy for 10 years now. And I'm still passionate about this field of work because I support people with chronic health problems. And it arose out of my own journey to health from chronic health problems in my early 20s. Between age 19 and 24, I was really unwell with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, which left me bedbound at times and pretty devastated with the severity of symptoms. For instance, I had a constant headache for the first year of being unwell. And I've been passionate about my work ever since I recovered, of helping other people to heal from chronic health problems like chronic fatigue, ME, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivity, autoimmune disorders, digestive issues, so a whole range of different chronic health issues I've supported people to heal. I'm just going to share some slides with you now. They're just coming on. You can heal chronic illness. So this is an introduction to the Lotus Process, an 8-step method to health and happiness. So in today's session, we'll cover why it's important to spend an hour of your time watching this video. Because obviously health is important and having good health is important. Following a pathway to good health if you have a chronic health problem is crucial to a happy and healthy life. And also, if you are pretty well or only have a mild condition, or perhaps you don't even have a chronic health condition, even so, these steps can also help you to improve the quality of your life and to help you to sustain health and happiness, and to prevent illness. So to inspire your journey, I'll share my own experience of healing from 5 years of ME/CFS in my early 20s, well actually aged 19 to 24, and my work for the last 10 years now helping others to heal as a body worker initially, and then later on as a wellbeing coach and EFT practitioner. You will discover about the Lotus Process, which is an 8-step journey to health and happiness. You can heal. You are so worth taking the time to watch this video and to be inspired that you can heal yourself. I've done it. I was 5 years unwell. At times I was pretty much bedbound. For long periods I was housebound. And I've since supported since I recovered myself, I've supported thousands of people on their path to wellness. And you can do it too. You can be one of those success stories. Follow the steps of this tried and tested method and you'll be well on the way to the life you want. You can heal. The body wants to heal. The body wants us to be well. If we can get ourselves out of the way and follow steps to healing, it's really miraculous what can happen. So I had ME/CFS for 5 years, as I mentioned. At times I was bedbound, and at times I was housebound with the condition. And I had a constant headache for the first year after getting unwell, and lots of brain fog. At times my muscles were so weak so that I could hardly get off the sofa or out of bed for days at a time. There were various tools that helped me along my healing path. Tools such as meditation and yoga. Thankfully, I discovered meditation a year before when I was traveling the world. A year before getting unwell, I was traveling in places like Nepal and India and got fascinated by meditation and yoga. And I also got fascinated by Buddhism. So actually having developed into a kind of interest in Buddhism was really helpful as well in the early stages of illness, reading about how suffering is just an inherent part of the condition of being human, but also there is a path to freedom from suffering. So following this for many years was also very helpful. I had various kinds of body work while I was healing, such as massage and Bowen technique and other approaches. I learned mindfulness, and I learned to practice mindfulness and to live more in the present moment. That was very helpful. I learned about nutrition, and I started to give my body the food that it really wanted. So perhaps things like drinking vegetable juices, eating lots of good quality vegetables. For me, I was a vegetarian, but I went to eating a little bit of meat. So just finding out what's good for you and your own system to help you to heal. And I also cut out dairy and wheat, and for many people this can be important too. I also learned NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, EFT, or emotional freedom technique, and these tools helped me with the final stages of my recovery. I also had acupuncture throughout my illness, which at times felt really helpful. So this 8-step method developed from my experience of healing and my experience over the last 10 years of supporting others on their path to healing. And I have found that acceptance and surrender, belief and commitment, self-care and finding inner resources, having a sense of community and support around healing, overcoming blocks to healing, Purpose and authenticity, so developing a purpose to be well and developing your authentic purpose and your authentic self. Healing your past and learning to not only get well but also to sustain your health are so often all important steps on the road to a full and lasting health recovery. So my life now. So I've gone from being very unwell in my early 20s to 10 years after recovery. I now have a little boy who's 3. I also enjoy running, and I'm still passionate about my work, supporting people from around the world healing chronic health problems. So a bit about my background. So while I was unwell, I learnt Reiki, which I did on myself as one of my kind of self-healing, self-soothing strategies. I also started to learn the Bowen technique and then later the Emmett technique, which are forms of body work. I started my practice soon after that as a Bowen therapist primarily. And I also then later trained in hypnotherapy, EFT, NLP and life coaching, which then I started to integrate into my practice. I became the co-author of Secrets to Recovery, a book of 12 recovery stories from ME, chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. I've been an official Gupta coach for Amygdala retraining since 2008, which offers a program to support people to recover from chronic health problems like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivity and electrosensitivity. I've been an EFT advanced practitioner since 2008, and I learned EFT for trauma and abuse 2012, and I've been passionate about EFT, so I later trained to be a trainer, an EFT trainer as well. I'm a massage therapist. I'm the co-founder of Women's Wellness Circle. We offer online events and in-person retreats for women with chronic health problems, teaching tried and tested tools to support healing, all within the conscious circle of conscious and evolving women. And it's a powerful container to support healing, which I'm really, really passionate about. I'm really passionate about working with women. I enjoy my work with men as well, but in terms of group work, I'm particularly passionate about working with women. I'm the co-founder of East Midlands Constellations, which is an organisation to develop constellations as an approach to healing in the East Midlands area. I will talk more about constellations in the more advanced training. The wholeness process, again, I'll talk more about this later, but it's a beautiful method that I've trained in 2016 for supporting healing and moving forwards. And I'm a best-selling author of You Can Heal Chronic Illness, The Lotus Process, 8 Steps to Health and Happiness. And here's my book. So the 8 steps, briefly, acceptance and surrender. We can't move on from something unless we first accept that it's here for now. But we also have to have a sense of belief and commitment to healing, which seems paradoxical. But of course, we don't just want to accept and surrender to what is. We also want to believe that we can heal and commit to the process of doing that. So, and part of that commitment is about step 3, learning self-care tools, developing our inner resources and our inner resilience and our inner strength. And it's also important to have a sense of community and support around us, a wider community and support. We are social beings, so this aspect is important as well. Inner resilience, inner strength, and outer containers of support as well. It's important that we overcome any blocks to healing. Now, it may seem odd, but actually, sometimes there can be parts of us that want to have a particular health problem because we feel like maybe it protects us from something or something like that. So bear with me here. You'll learn more about this shortly. Another step to healing for some people is to heal your past, not your whole past, but perhaps the specific memories that might be connected to your physical health problems. So sometimes when there's been some sort of traumatic event in the past, that can be one of the triggers for a chronic health problem. And in terms of a full and lasting health recovery on all levels of ourselves, it can be helpful to unravel and unlock some of these memories so that we can be free and released from them. And finally, it's not only about getting well, because we don't want to just get well and go back to our old life, which often involved overdoing, overgiving, those kind of things that can deplete the system. But no, it's about getting well and then learning to sustain our health and wholeness. So I'll talk about strategies to support you to do that as well. So the lotus symbol, I chose the lotus because the lotus in Buddhism is a symbol of growth from the mud and the dark out into the fully open lotus flower. In Buddhism, it's a symbol for awakening. And for me, it feels apt for what the journey of healing from a chronic health problem is often like. Actually, for many people, it becomes a process of spiritual emergence as well and growth on many levels. And whether or not that resonates with you, I hope that you like the metaphor of a flower opening out into your most happy and healthy self. and that it's a journey to get there. So a couple of recovery stories just to inspire you, for people that I've worked with and are now fully well. Step 1. So we'll go into a bit more detail of all the steps now. Step 1, acceptance and surrender. So what we accept can change, and what we resist will persist. So developing an attitude of acceptance can really lay the foundation for healing. And even having a sense of surrender, letting go completely. And to help us have a sense of surrender, it can be helpful to just have a sense of something bigger than ourselves that we can almost surrender to. For instance, a surrender to love, a spiritual figure that represents the divine to us if we have those kind of belief systems, perhaps to nature, perhaps to the universe. What works for you? What helps you develop a sense of a vaster container of support and be able to sort of have a sense of surrender and letting go to that bigger container of support? And that could be the biggest, wisest, most expansive version of yourself. So what can also help us develop a sense of acceptance and surrender is to understand that the mind and body are very connected. Yes, when we have a physical health condition, of course the symptoms are very real, but they can be seen as a guide to deeper healing of the mind and soul, because the mind and body are so connected. So if we have emotional stress, or emotional events that have triggered us in the past, it can lead to stress in the system, which then can lead to particular kinds of illness and disease. They are deeply intrinsically connected, and I believe this is the case for most chronic health conditions, that the real root of the problem is either stress or trauma, and that once we start to unlock these stresses and traumas from the system, that the symptoms resolve. That is my strong belief and my experience with the various clients that I've worked with from around the world. So there are various tools that can help us develop this sense of acceptance and surrender. Tools like meditation. So there are different kinds of meditation. We can meditate on the breath. We can meditate on loving kindness or developing compassion for ourselves and others. So learning some meditation, which I will be including more on in my further training. And also to develop a sense of gratitude can be really important. Now, gratitude can be grateful for simple things in our lives, like having a roof over our heads, like having enough food to eat, like some of the people in our life that we're grateful for. So to focus on what you're grateful for in life can be really important to help you move to where you want to be in terms of having more of those things that bring you great gratitude into your life. And many of my clients, towards the end of their illness or at the end of their illness, will say, actually, now I'm grateful that I've had this illness. I've learned so much about myself that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And even people, when they're in the middle of it, have said that to me, because they realise that they've learned so much. And personally, I can say I am seriously and honestly and authentically grateful for the experience of being unwell in my early 20s. I learned so much about myself and about life through that time. And if I hadn't have been flawed with these symptoms that left me housebound at times and bedbound at times, I would not have done the personal growth that I did at that time, that I was forced to do at that time, the personal growth and awareness, the meditation, the awareness of my inner patterns and inner conditioning and shifting into new ways of being. It would not have happened had I not been ill. So I'm grateful, hand on heart, grateful for that experience, even though it left me, with extreme headaches and bedbound and extremely weak at times. I'm still grateful. Now, looking back, maybe it's easier to say in hindsight, but that's an honest truth. So other tools that might support you in this process is to develop a strategy to pause and quieten your mind and release thoughts and fears about symptoms. So there'll be more about this in the later training. And there's also the power of emotional freedom technique, or EFT, to help release our emotions and thoughts and fears and beliefs about symptoms as well. For this process of developing that quality of acceptance and surrender, the foundation of healing, particularly acceptance. So in terms of surrender and acceptance, perhaps things like being in nature can also be helpful. Perhaps just enjoying the sunlight through these trees here, the feeling of the trees. It's actually proven that people who can see trees out of their window of a hospital bed heal faster than those that can't. So nature in itself can be very healing. And for some people can help to access that sense of surrender or something bigger than yourself. So the way we deal with symptoms to support healing is just to be aware, okay, yeah, while you're unwell, symptoms are going to exist, but your reaction to the symptoms can always be changed. And often the symptoms themselves can be changed, but as we start to change our reactions, that's always the first step. So this is referred to in Buddhism as the second arrow. This can be always changed. That's our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs about symptoms. So this is a layer of the stress cycle that often happens in chronic illness and pain, a layer in the stress cycle that will then perpetuate illness. So resolving this is really important to support a full and lasting healing. Acceptance initially is key. Acceptance of symptoms initially is key. So to support us with developing this sense of acceptance, it can be helpful to have a bit of understanding about the mind-body connection and about how deeply connected they are. So we have two branches of our nervous system. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is to deal with fight or flight situation. And the parasympathetic is to deal with rest and digest and the healing response within the body. And it's really important that we have both these branches of the nervous system. For our ancestors, it was crucial that they could go into the fight or flight response, say if a tiger came out of the woods and they had to escape, or maybe they even tried to fight it. But it was a crucial survival mechanism. The problem is today that many of us get into a perpetual cycle of stress. And this can be stress about things like work, relationships, traffic, the busyness, overstimulation. So all of these kind of stresses can build up in a system and can be one of the factors that then leads to illness because the stress response becomes overly switched on. So trauma and ongoing stress will activate this fight or flight mechanism within the system. And it can also go to the freeze. So when there's been particularly powerful and difficult memories from the past, sometimes we might freeze as a way of dealing with it. And our system may stay stuck in that state of freeze, which can again be part of the problem that leads to disease later on, once it becomes chronic and it's not released from the body. There's someone called Peter Levine who's done a lot of writing about the freeze and how important it is to release the freeze. Like animals in nature would naturally go through a cycle where if they go into the freeze to protect themselves from a really difficult situation, once they're in a place of safety, they will shake and release it as if nothing has happened. But unfortunately, human beings or animals in captivity often don't go through that natural mechanism in the nervous system to release that freeze response, and it can stay stuck, which can then lead to disease. Which is why step 7 of healing the past, which we'll come to later, is sometimes an important step on the road to recovery. And also to support us in developing a sense of acceptance can be to understand about the amygdala, which is a pea-sized structure in the centre of the brain that is active in trauma and stress. And it's part of the emotional brain that deals with fear and threat, and it elicits the fight, flight or freeze response. But it can become overactive in many chronic illnesses. And we'll talk more about this in the later training. But it's just helpful to know a little bit about this. And I've been a Goodall program coach for the last 8 years, and the Goodall program helps people recover from conditions like chronic fatigue, ME, fibromyalgia, multiple chemical sensitivity and electrosensitivity by retraining this part of the brain. And I believe the amygdala is crucial in many illnesses, and actually retraining the brain is crucial for many of us to support healing chronic illness and also in having happier and healthier lives. So a quote here from Bruce Lipton at the start, one of the pioneers in the power of belief for healing. So believing you can heal, I can heal, and I believe in this person. So maybe just seeing if you can find a part of you that believes in me, that believes in my story and believes in this process. And that will really help you for this to actually work for you. So belief in itself is powerful, and believing that you're actually in the process of healing, that in itself can support you to heal. The power of the placebo effect proves this, that even when sometimes people are taking a sugar pill or perhaps even having a false knee operation, they can still have healing effects because of the power of belief. So believing you can heal is powerful on your road to recovery. And if you're not in a place of belief at the moment for various reasons, they are all indications for areas for you to be doing some work on yourself around to support you in shifting out of those states of mind, of thought, of belief into something more positive. And doing that again and again in a way that supports you, laying that foundation of belief and commitment and releasing what holds you back from that belief. And part of that belief is about supports you then in developing a deep commitment to self-care and doing all the steps that are so often required to recover, such as outlined here. So Lotus Process tools to support you in developing this belief in commitment include pausing and reframing negative thoughts, using EFT for your fears and doubts on your sadness or whatever it is that blocks you from having that belief and commitment, and the wholeness process, which again I will come to in the later training, more information about how that works. So here are some recovery stories to inspire belief. So read, I don't know what condition you personally have, but read recovery stories that are particular for your condition. There are people out there who have recovered from most conditions. If you put into Google your condition and recovery, you might come out with some really interesting, inspiring stories. So I don't generally suggest doing lots of Google searching, but particularly when you're searching around recovery or something positive, then it can be really helpful. Here's some examples, and a couple of longer ones as well. So even if you've had the condition for say 20 years or 30 years, or even if you're older, you can still heal. These are the sort of blocks sometimes people have. Oh no, I've had it for too long, or oh no, I'm too old. You're young, it's different for you. But they're all limiting beliefs actually that then prevent you from taking the steps to making a full recovery. Step 3 of the Lotus process is self-care and inner resources. So for instance, this is things like looking after your body with good sleep. And I really suggest going to bed early, between say about 9 and 11 every night, and getting up pretty early as well, maybe between 7 and 9. Getting into a healthy routine, the routine that a well person would have, and making sure you're getting at least probably 8 hours sleep a night while you're unwell. Once you're better, you might be able to manage fine on 6 or 7 or whatever your body seems to slot into. But while you're unwell, getting as much good quality deep sleep is really powerful to support yourself in healing. And if sleep is an issue, being as calm and relaxed about that as possible, getting your mind out of the way, using tools to support you in relaxing and letting go and unwinding at night and dropping into that deep, healing, restorative sleep. And do get help with that if that is an issue for you. Do get support to get your sleep back on track. Eating well. So this can be things like, many people find it helpful to reduce things like milk or dairy products, reduce things like wheat, and to eat more vegetables. Some people find it helpful to eat a bit of meat if they've been vegetarian, not always, but just finding out what's good for you and your body and keeping it pretty simple. Some people find certain supplements to be helpful, but I wouldn't go too far down that direction. It can be a bit of a rabbit hole of endless supplements and that kind of thing, and I don't feel that that's generally getting to the root of the problem, although it can support your healing. I also recommend exercising as much as possible for where you are currently in your health. So if that means you can just do a few gentle yoga stretches or movements in bed, that is okay, just do that. If it means you can just walk around your house a little bit initially, that's okay, start there. Start where you are and then gradually build yourself up, while following all the different steps of this process to support you in really healing at a deep level and developing the inner resilience and resources to be able to build your exercise in a healthy and safe way. And also, I'd recommend developing the most accepting, compassionate and loving part of yourself. And there are various tools that we will look at to support you in developing this part of yourself. And this part of yourself, the most accepting, compassionate, courageous, loving part of yourself, can then support other parts of you to feel more whole and connected. I also recommend laughing often. So you might watch some comedy, you might do laughter yoga, but laughter is proven to be very healing. So finding as much opportunity to laugh in your life will support you with your healing. I also recommend you follow your joy, and that you explore your creativity, and also that you spend time in nature. So these are all great ways that you can develop your inner resources. So there are various Lotus Process tools that will support you to self-regulate your nervous system, to build up your self-care and inner resources. Things like emotional freedom technique, pausing unhelpful thought patterns and choosing a new way. Things like the wholeness process work, which I'll come to in a later training. Things like mindfulness, developing more awareness and living more in the moment, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're just walking around your house, you bring more presence and awareness to what you're doing, or eating your dinner, or washing up, bringing more awareness to your daily life. And meditation. Meditation is one of the foundational practices of the Lotus process. To practice regular meditation, even if you just start with 5 minutes of meditation a day and build up, it's somewhere to start that can be helpful for restoring your health and setting the foundation for healing. I also recommend that you have retreats and holidays that are nurturing for you, that having this space away from daily life, perhaps in nature, can really support a healing path. So this is why it's important to self-regulate the nervous system, because as I mentioned, ongoing stress and trauma affects your physical health, it affects your nervous system, and it affects all the systems of your body. So everything in your body starts to function at a suboptimal level, which can then lead to symptoms of various kinds. So if you can learn to self-regulate your own nervous system, then you can start to create the inner state that supports physical healing. You get yourself into that healing parasympathetic state with a calmer amygdala. And for lasting results, we often need repetition, and we need to have a commitment to our healing, but also be compassionate and gentle with ourselves. So a gentle, compassionate commitment to the work. So throughout the journey of healing, we often need to be aware of our reactions to being unwell and the symptoms that perpetuate the illness cycle. And in terms of our self-care and our self-work, we also need to start to become aware of our personality types and the underlying traumas and deeper conditioning from family and society. So we'll talk more about the trauma aspect in step 7, but just to have a sense of the kind of things you might be working with your ongoing commitment to self-care and building your resources. Working with these kind of patterns can really support you to set that foundation of healing. These are the kind of things you might be applying your self-care on to support your healing and reinforce new pathways in the brain that reinforce well-being and health. So thankfully, as I was just mentioning, the brain is rewirable, known as neuroplasticity, that we can rewire our own brains to health and happiness. We have the power over time to calm our own limbic systems down, and therefore calm our own whole bodies down and move towards a healing state that can support us to heal a whole range of physical health problems. The prefrontal cortex part of the brain, also known as the watchtower of the brain, it's also the part of us, it can also be the part of us that's often the observer. So when we meditate, we can develop the part of us that can observe thoughts and feelings. Those of you that meditate will know this. Those of you that don't, it might be a new idea, but we can develop a more witnessing, observing part of ourselves. And this is found in this area of the brain. And even by bringing our awareness to this area, it can help activate this part of the brain and help to calm the amygdala down and the threat system down. And this part of the brain is rewirable. We can change this part of our brain. We can rewire it to better health and happiness. So what helps us to rewire our brains? So when we're really focused and present with an activity, that supports us to be in the optimum state to heal. For instance, activities that bring you joy and presence, whether that's maybe exercise or doing something creative or being in nature, or being with people that you love. So whatever brings you that sense of joy and being in the present moment. Here's my little boy here enjoying some nature. So tools that can help to calm the mind and heal the body: meditation and mindfulness, which will be introduced more as we go through the Lotus process journey, neurolinguistic programming, emotional freedom technique, which is also known as tapping, you working on acupuncture meridians while tapping or holding different points around the body to support you in clearing anything really that can be blocking your healing path. So any patterns, maybe patterns around symptoms, perhaps patterns around personality, perhaps underlying traumas, so we can use it on anything. Even just bringing your awareness to your forehead, as I mentioned, can help to calm the amygdala and bring that focus. Yoga and breathing exercises can also help. Step 4 of the Lotus process is about community and support, that we are actually social beings as human beings. It's natural for us to want to be with other people, to have that sense of belonging and to have outer containers of support. So find a support network. Maybe there's therapy groups, maybe there's friendship groups, maybe there's one-to-one therapy sessions that you can have. that will really support you. I mean, I offer some of those kind of programs, so you can find out more about that at the end as we go through this journey. But there are so many different support options out there. Maybe you seek some EFT support, maybe you seek some body work. Then also you can find out about what your next step with the Lotus process could be and join the community. There will also be a Facebook group and a community created out of this approach. And this is some women from our Women's Wellness Circle community on a recent retreat. And really the power of a group of people coming together with a shared intention is really powerful in a supportive container. So finding some supportive containers for your healing can really help you to get to where you want to be. Step 5 of the Lotus process is about overcoming blocks to healing. So there might be certain personality traits, unconscious blocks, and limiting beliefs that are holding you back. Personality traits that can hinder or slow down recovery if not in check, because they will be triggering off the amygdala and triggering off the sympathetic nervous system if you're in those kind of states too much, like the peacemaker, where you're avoiding conflict and you're avoiding expressing your authentic emotions. Or maybe the helper, who's really focused on helping other people but not yourself. Maybe the achiever, where you're really focused on external achievement and wanting approval from others by that achievement rather than just feeling worthwhile in yourself. Maybe the perfectionist, where you're focused on having to get everything perfect, having to do everything right, or you're in anxiety, or you're seeking safety all the time. There's a sense of fear underlying a lot of your experience. Or maybe you're the highly sensitive person trait, or maybe you're a combination of all of them. And to be honest, I had many of these traits, particularly the peacemaker trait, and I realized that I avoided conflicts at all costs, even to my health. And recognizing this pattern towards the end of my healing was a crucial step to making the full and lasting healing, health recovery that I made, and learning to express my authentic emotions more. I also very much relate to the highly sensitive person trait, and I find many of my clients relate to this trait. And actually, it's a real gift to be sensitive. So reframing sensitivity as a gift of empathy, gift of sensitivity to emotions, to your own and other people's emotions, that's a real gift. But just having it in balance so that you maybe, you know that you need to look after yourself a bit more in terms of having some alone time. And also you start to reframe it as a gift rather than as a hindrance or something that means that, it's a bad thing. It can become just a gift, and you can still be strong. You can be sensitive and strong. You really can. I know it. And another block to healing can be the kind of when you feel better, you think, you kind of forget everything. Maybe you drop all the self-care, you drop the good diet, you go back to some of these old patterns, and then you get unwell again. And then it becomes this kind of cycle of flare-up of symptoms and then feeling better. And So getting out of that cycle can be really helpful, and for a long, deep and lasting recovery. So awareness of that. Becoming conscious of and working on the roots of the types that are leading to unsustainable behavior. So it's okay to have some of these personality traits, and certainly I still relate to many of them, but it's just having them in balance so that they're not actually making you unwell anymore, so that you can still be, you can still achieve or want to achieve in life, but you don't depend on it in order to feel okay about yourself, and you don't overdo it. You do it where you're at. Maybe you're healthy enough to have a full life with lots of achievements, or maybe you're not at that stage yet, and it's just about gently working towards achieving your health, and then you can work towards achieving what it is you want with the rest of your life. So, and also an aspect of this is overcoming limiting beliefs about yourself, life, people, situations. So examples of limiting beliefs and unconscious blocks are things like the world is a scary place. If I heal, I have to go back to the relationship or job that I hated. I'm not worth a happy and healthy life. Life is just hard. I'll forget about myself if I'm well again and have to go back to helping, achieving, and all of these kind of things. So these kind of beliefs can be kind of like unconscious blocks to recovery. So sometimes the illness is almost like a protection from a world out there that feels scary and unsafe. So it's actually almost safer to be ill and at home and those kind of things. And so to just start to recognize these beliefs and the roots of these beliefs and release these from your system and get into those really positive beliefs about the world, about people, and focusing on what is positive in the world. Of course, there are areas that are unsafe, and there are people out there that aren't great, but there is a lot of great things happening in the world, a lot of great people that you can connect with as well. So focusing on the positive things in yourself and the positive things in the world to help you to get to where you want to be. And also to honor that You can be both well and be looking after yourself and rest and have a good work-life balance and all those things. Step 6 of the Lotus process is about purpose and authenticity. So to help pull us along the path to health and wellness, we often need a sense of purpose to be well, something that we're moving towards. Now, this could be big or it could be small. It might be a new career. It might be helping other people in some way in a balanced way. It might be helping the environment in some way. It might be to be there more for your family or to have a family and to be a stay-at-home mum or dad. It might be to have fun with others more often. It might be to travel the world. It might be to write a book or to inspire others or to write a novel. And your purpose can be big or small. It doesn't matter what it is, but you just got a sense of some reason why you want to be well. And some purpose that often is bigger than yourself. That is often what will inspire you on your journey to wellness. So finding your purpose and finding what it is authentically to you. What's your authentic purpose? And I'll talk more about authenticity in a moment. So if you're not sure what your purpose is, perhaps reflect on these questions to help you to uncover it. What do you love? What inspires you? What wider causes in the world do you feel passionate about? Imagine being towards the end of your life. What would you want to have accomplished? What would you want to look back on? What would be most important for you that you've done in your life or been in your life as a person? What matters to you the most? Now, for me, one of my inspirations to be well was because I wanted to support others to heal. I got the illness at a time that I otherwise would have been studying at university, and I was studying psychology anyway when I got unwell. And it became clear to me as I started to heal and started to get results from all the work I was doing that, wow, I'm having some control over my body and I'm learning about healing my body. This is amazing. And I want to share this with others once I get there and once I've experienced actually going from this horrible illness to helping, and I want to share this journey with others. And actually that helped inspire me and keep pulling me along, even though it was really hard at times, and even though I lost hope at times and I was devastated I was back at home and well again, having thought I'd healed several times. It inspired me to keep going with it, keep going with that journey. So finding something that inspires you. So I've had clients have different kinds of things that inspire them, maybe to follow a similar kind of pathway to me, maybe to work for a particular charity they believe in, maybe to write books. So just really finding out what works for you and what inspires you. And I've witnessed people heal chronic health problems and go off and do some really interesting things. So just being, finding out what your personal inspiration is and not what you think you should be doing or ought to be doing or your parents think you should be doing, or not necessarily what you were doing before, although you can go back to it if you want to and it feels good, but really what inspires you. This is also about authenticity, developing your authentic self. This will help you be healthy and happy. This is also about learning to express your feelings and needs authentically. Of course, it's important to be aware of other people's feelings and needs, but really owning and honouring your own as well. Following your own joy in life, your authentic joy in life, believing in yourself and others, discovering your true self. You really are worth living the life of your dreams and being your authentic self, being you, being who you were born to be in this world and express your unique gifts in the world. Step 7 of the Lotus process is about healing your past. In the broken places, the light shines through. I remember reading this at one point in my recovery journey and crying because I realised that I felt like I had kind of all these broken places inside, but also that there was a lot of light coming through them, and it just really touched something deeply in me. So building your own sense of inner holding and inner container, and the stronger, wiser part of you will help you with this process of starting to gently heal your past. And it's not necessarily necessary to even start this journey of healing and clearing your past to heal physically. I've witnessed many people make a full recovery without even going here. But it was a part of my journey to health. And I find for many of my clients or the people that are drawn to work with me, it's also been a part of their journey to health. Is to clear out trauma and emotional wounding from the system, and with the right support. Emotion is energy in motion. It's supposed to move around the body, flow around the body, and then release. But many of us suppress certain feelings because maybe we were told as a child things like don't cry or don't be angry, or maybe we just had something that overwhelmed us so much at a particular time and we didn't know how to deal with it, so we froze and we started to freeze our feelings and freeze everything inside and keep it all inside. This is also a bit about the nervous system, and how in the nervous system we can hold on to trauma when we've gone into the freeze response and not released it. So understanding a bit of the science behind this can help us in our process of healing. And also if we start to get things like sort of shaking or body movements as we heal, that can be actually a good sign that the body's releasing, the body-mind's releasing things that have been held in there. Talk a bit about attachment theory in this step of the process. It's about how we want to develop a secure attachment with our caregivers as babies, generally our mother or also our father. And many of us have a somewhat ruptured secure attachment, which then can be one of the things that leads to chronic health problems. So developing a more secure attachment can support you in moving forwards. A secure attachment that then will impact not only your physical health but also your relationships. So we'll talk more about that in the more advanced training, but just wanted to introduce the concept. There can be traumatic events from your past, specific events that might need to be addressed for a full and lasting healing. And sometimes it's not all about what happened to you. We actually sometimes are born into trauma because of what our parents or our grandparents or great-grandparents have experienced but wasn't released. That doesn't mean there's no hope. Thankfully, because of work like family constellations, these kind of traumas can also be addressed. We can also address these things. I'm not saying that will necessarily be necessary to you. And I actually only started doing this work after I healed chronic illness. You don't have to heal it all in order to be physically well. So just one step at a time. And it's also important to have time enjoying your life. It's not all about delving into the past and doing all this healing work. So you get support, and there's support available from me. There's deeper support available from me, which you'll hear about soon. And there's also a wider community of support. So get support. This step is often important because many of us always deal with things the best we can at the time, but we leave certain processes incomplete in our system, certain experiences incomplete. We maybe haven't digested the emotions fully or the experience fully, and it's left incomplete in our body, mind, and in our unconscious. It might be grief that hasn't been expressed fully. It might be developmental trauma, which is trauma that happened at a particular time of development that affected that stage of development that you would naturally have gone through otherwise. It could be relational trauma, such as having a parent that was an alcoholic or had a mental health problem. It might be obvious specific traumatic events, or it could be difficult life experiences. So all of these things can impact your physical health over time, particularly if you've had a build-up of lots of them. So finding relief from these emotions and traumas frees up energy and flow in the system. And go gently, and remember, you don't have to resolve it all to be physically well. And if you want to keep on the process of healing the past and this kind of journey, it can continue once you are well if you want to. So trauma is labelled as a deeply distressing experience. It's also been labelled as unexperienced experience. So part of you is dissociated from the experience and hasn't been in your body during it. You often feel isolated with the feelings and experience when it's a trauma, and you haven't had a sense of connection afterwards to restore your system back to balance again. You've been unable to complete the fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms in the body, so it's stayed stuck. But we always deal with it the best we can at the time, and a part of us has stayed stuck. So with the right support, we can start to build connection to the parts of us that are locked in the past trauma. We can start to integrate the memories. We can process unresolved feelings and discharge the energy in the nervous system, which, as I mentioned, might involve some movement or shaking as we complete the fight or flight response, as we move from the freeze into the fight or flight, which is a healthy movement. We can start to feel more secure and safe in our body and in our relationships to others. So all the 8 steps here will support you in healing trauma. Education will help, and I'll teach you more about this in the bootcamp training that you'll hear about soon. We can retrain our brain and nervous system to better health and happiness as we heal trauma, using tools like a pause, which I'll introduce in the bootcamp, meditation, I mentioned, there's different kinds of meditation that, which again will be introduced in the bootcamp. Neurolinguistic programming, emotional freedom technique, wholeness process work, family constellations if there has been bigger, wider trauma in your family system. Connection and support in the Lotus Process private Facebook group is just kind of having a sense of community of people around you who get your path. So find out more in the bootcamp about trauma and healing, and also about one-to-one and small group coaching options once you've taken that training. And another recovery story to inspire you. Step 8 of the Lotus Process, learning to sustain your health and wholeness. So this is in part about pacing and learning to stop patterns of doing lots and returning to old habits, eating food that's not right or whatever it is for you, and then going back into symptom flare-ups of some kind, and just stopping that pattern and what leads to those kind of burnouts again and again. So building up gradually, being mindful of our inner patterns, keeping up the self-care, the meditation, the relaxation, the different tools. Ongoing self-care, make it a part of your life. Have a good variety of support systems in place in your life that meet a variety of needs. So maybe you have a regular date night with your partner if you have one, and you have regular time with some of your female or male friends, or just your friendship groups. You maybe go to supportive groups like meditation. Maybe you consider joining one of my groups. You get different containers of support around you as you heal. I also recommend, particularly for women, that you learn about following your menstrual cycle as a path to better health, but also sustaining your health. There's a lot of great work there around that, and again I'll talk more about that on the bootcamp. And also outer cycles, both men and women, just being aware that, you know, when it's winter time, it's a time of hibernating a bit more, being a bit more quiet, and summertime's a bit time to be a bit more out there and be active and energetic. So just following nature's rhythms, following our inner rhythms, can be really helpful as we heal, and accepting that sometimes we just might need to rest and let go, and that's okay. That's a normal part of life. You don't have to be on the go all the time. And ongoing personal growth, I do recommend keeping up the process of personal growth to support you in having that lasting healing. So I'm going to close with a poem before I share a bit more about the next steps. Just for now, without asking how, let yourself sink into stillness. Just for now. Lay down the weight you so patiently bear upon your shoulders. Feel the earth receive you and the infinite expanse of the sky grow even wider as your awareness reaches up to meet it. Just for now, allow a wave of breath to enliven your experience. Breathe out whatever blocks you from the truth. Just for now. Be boundless, free, awakened, energy tingling in your hands and feet. Drink in the possibility of being who and what you really are, so fully alive that when you open your eyes, the world looks different, newly born and vibrant, just for now. The next steps are to join the You Can Heal Chronic Illness, the Lotus Process 8 Steps to Health and Happiness Bootcamp. So in this, we will cover advanced ways of approaching the tools that will be weaved into the 8 steps to support you on your healing at every stage of the journey. Tools such as emotional freedom technique, neurolinguistic programming tools, constellations, wholeness process, meditation, and mindfulness. They will be combined in a unique way and sequenced to support a deep and profound healing on many levels. Many of my clients have found all of these tools to be really helpful to make a full and lasting health recovery. May you be one of those people. Find out more from Patrick in a moment.